Today we have a special guest. Claudia is joining us. You are going to want to pull up her handouts. So my first announcement is to go to my Substack page. I'm sure this won't be the last time I say it. Go to my Substack, the main page of my Substack. You're going to see handouts for Talks with Claudia. And click on that. You're going to see a PDF presentation. This is pretty dense information. AV, great. Randolph says great. Hi, Randolph. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Linda. Good to see you all. So yeah, head to my Substack page, open that handout. You're going to see a PDF presentation to go along with both today and Thursday with Claudia's talks. I'm going to have her introduce herself in a minute. But that's first. Go pull that up in order to keep yourself kind of grounded as we go through this dense information. Secondly, I mentioned yesterday about everybody starting to vision together this new world, right? I learned the term Nova Gaia, new Earth. Beautiful, right? So Nova Gaia, what does she look like? What does it all look like? And I had said to put it on the comments of my post yesterday, but I want to do it in the mission and vision. So I already put my own comment in there. Let's start visioning together. It's basically a vision list, like a want list. Like, what do we want? So let's vision that in the comments of my mission and vision post, which also is on the main page of my Substack. So I'm going to point everybody to that. And tomorrow I can confirm with Al. Al will be here, Al Hasty, who is going to be available as a coach soon for hire. He and I are going to have a conversation about being a people pleaser most of his life and coming out of that. And he's going to be joining the men's group. And he's at home with his little baby, but is reserving some time for us tomorrow. So be sure to see that tomorrow. And then Claudia will be back here on Thursday. So this is part one of a 2-part presentation for this week. So I'm going to have her introduce herself. Hi, Miriam. Hello, Wildfire Rose. She says it got moved to 7 p.m. Something about label to leave. Okay, Miriam, looks like you can be here. Okay, I'm good. Okay, so this is Claudia. She's going to be presenting some incredible information. I'm going to have her introduce herself and give you the background about what we're going to learn about today. Welcome, Claudia. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And so I'm going to start a little bit just with housekeeping. I'm just going to read a disclaimer. I'm not a medical doctor. Okay, so none of the information contained here has been evaluated by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, and it is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. It is provided for informational purposes only, and it must not be used to replace professional medical advice. Any information provided in this video presentation should not be considered complete or relied upon in diagnosing or treating any medical condition. If you suspect you may have a disease or condition, you may consult a licensed medical provider for a diagnosis or specific questions about health issues.
Thank you.
Okay, and so now I'm going to talk a little bit about who I am. I am, like, maybe in order of importance, I am a single mom of the 2 best souls currently inhabiting this planet. That is my unbiased opinion. And so I'm a biochemical engineer. I actually studied industrial biochemical engineering, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's really all about using biotechnology to produce pharmaceuticals that are made from organic products, not synthetic products. So I put myself through college being a translator, and obviously because I'm a biochemical engineer, I started getting work for the pharmaceutical industry, for the medical industry. And so after college, I continued working as a freelance translator, and I have been doing that for 36 years. And I quit a little while back, but then I had to rejoin, but I'll tell you that story at another time. Um, so I can honestly say that I have more knowledge than most medical doctors about pharmaceuticals. I have translated everything from clinical trials, investigator brochures, informed consent forms, all the regulatory paperwork. And so that's I really do feel it's not arrogant of my of me
No.
to say.
Right.
Okay, and so just, that's a little bit of th the basis of what I'm gonna be talking about. It's really about science today, okay? It's mostly about the sciencey part of this whole situation. I'm also a cellist, and I'm a Suzuki cello teacher. I did that, for around 16 years. And so regarding my religion, um, I was born and raised a Catholic, but I never really resonated with Catholicism. Then I became an atheist. I thought in a scientist, and that's literally like a religion, right? And where the only true knowledge can come from science. Then I dabbled a little bit in Sufism, and then I came into shamanism, do like a really strong life event, and I have been practicing or a shamanic practitioner or shamanic healer for the past 2 decades. And currently, I self identify as an omniist. I don't know if you've heard of omniism, but it is based on the premise that all religions hold part of the truth, but no religion holds all the truth.
True.
And so I take a little bit, here and there. I believe in God, I believe in Jesus and Buddhas and, like everything, gods, goddesses, everything. hmm So that's a little bit about me. And also what you would call a highly sensitive person, an intuitive empath. And I also, um, I'm a Reiki master in traditional Reiki and also in shamanic Reiki. And I'm a frequency medicine practitioner and a past life regression therapist, and more recently, a holographic bioalchemist, which is what I will be talking about.
I didn't know the
Okay.
name. That's so awesome.
Yeah. It has a
Yes.
yes, it has a name. And so just to start, I'm going to tell you a little bit a little story about me. Um, when I was in college, I went into this biochem lab practice, and I was a complete atheist when I was in college. And so I went into this lab practice, and we had to sacrifice a mouse, this tiny, beautiful with its whiskers. It was like awful. And so um, I started crying. I had to leave, but then I'm super, like, I'm an overachiever. I'm over responsible, and I'm a perfectionist, or I'm trying not to be anymore. But so I went back in because I didn't want to get, like, a failing grade or whatever. And we did the lab practice, and it was about extracting DNA
Mm,
from the liver of this tiny little mouse.
mm.
And so after the practice, the professor told us, we were holding this little flask with this like gel-like substance, and she said, "Okay, so now grab a glass rod and lift it up." And I lifted it up, and there was DNA hanging from the glass rod. And so all of a sudden, I just knew that there was a God,
Mm.
that there was something out of us, outside of us, that made us feel love and compassion, and that made us cry, and that made us laugh. And it's just like this moment that I knew. I just knew, like there was no
You
doubt.
just know. Mhm.
You just know it in your bones, right?
Gnosis, yes.
And so I'm saying this and I'm sharing this story because I found my faith in God through science. And that sounds like, you know, because people either they believe in science, right?
Mhm.
Or they believe in alternative medicine or complementary therapies or they believe in conventional medicine but it's just so polarized, right? And I really think that we don't need to do that. We should be able to take what science offers us, right?
Mhm.
And also what all of these other therapies and healing modalities and everything, what they're offering us. And we should be able to combine them, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Omniist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It applies everywhere else, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so right now, what I'm going to talk about is, I mean, people who are here will probably know most of this. They won't know like the actual science or nitty gritty of it. So I am going to go a little bit deep into it because my goal really is that you have something to share with people who are really still in the dark about this, right? And so if you share, like the actual science that's behind this, they might be open to maybe listening,
Yeah.
right? And I'll explain later why this is so important to me. But I would like to start with like a very short, just creating sacred space, very short meditation, a very gentle energy clearing, so we can all be in our bodies and like grounded, connected to source at the same time, and just so we can be open to just hearing about this. So, if the people who are listening, does that sound like something that you would like to do?
Give us a heart. Give us your heart. That's how we know. That's the immediate feedback loop is they send little hearts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe they're not.
Maybe not.
Oh,
Oh,
somebody's
here, yes.
like,
There,
okay.
here come the hearts. There's a delay. There's a delay. There they are. There
Okay.
they are.
Okay.
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 Cool.
And so I'm going to ask you all just to close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. And just take a deep breath, feeling the air coming into your lungs. And going all the way down to your lower belly. And releasing any stress, any fear, any worries, tension as you breathe out. Breathe in again. Bring in your conscious awareness into your body, gently scanning your body. And as you breathe out, just releasing any residual tension, any residual tightness. And breathe in again. Bringing your conscious awareness into the present moment. And as you breathe out, just trying to relax and soften your body. And so now I to ask you to visualize a beam of white light coming in through your third eye chakra, which is in the middle of your forehead. And as this light reaches you and starts to fill you up and expand, is going to clear your physical body with this light and with the sound of the Bija mantra Om, which you can say along with me, or just let the sound reach you, whatever makes you feel more comfortable. Now you're going to visualize a beam of red light coming in through your throat chakra. And as this light starts to fill you up and expand, it purifies the aspect of speech or your energy body with this light and with the Bija mantra A. And now you're going to visualize a beam of blue light coming in through your heart chakra, which is in the middle of your chest, at the base of your sternum. And as this light fills you up, it purifies the aspect of mind or consciousness with the sound of the Bija mantra Hum. So now you're just going to let these three beams of light start to flow across all of your bodies, your physical, your energy, and your subtle bodies. And as they start to flow, they're going to blend together, creating this beautiful violet light that dissolves any lower vibrational or dense or stagnant energy. And now we're just going to visualize this light coming out of our heart chakra. And all of us who are here together, whether right now or watching the replay, we're just going to visualize that we are sitting in a circle and that our beautiful planet, Mother Earth, is in the middle. And this violet light is going to start to come out of our heart. It's going to expand in all directions, first reaching the people sitting next to us, and then expanding in all directions and covering Mother Earth with this beautiful cleansing light. Just let yourself rest into this light. Contemplate if any thoughts arise. Just observe without judgment, without criticism, without attachment. And just continue to open your heart and continue to radiate light. And so take a deep breath in, bringing your conscious awareness back into your body. Breathe in again and start noticing the contours of your body, your surrounding. And breathe in one more time. And when you're ready to come back, fully grounded and fully connected to Source, just gently open your eyes. Okay,
Mhm. All together now.
all together now. Okay, and so I'm going to talk about this sort of in the order that I started to become aware of things. hmm And so the first thing um, that happened, well, I was really maybe all of us, I was following along like the daily briefings and the counts and da 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 da, right? And so then when these products rolled out, the first things that just didn't seem right to me is that I know for a fact, because I'm a translator for the pharmaceutical industry, that new product development takes at least 10 to 15 years. At least, at the very, very least. Um, then I also, through my work, I knew that the flu vaccines, for example, that they didn't work. That vaccines for viruses that mutate rapidly, they don't work. And this I found out because I was translating an investigator's brochure for a flu shot, and that's when I found out that they were like the flu shot that you get this year is for a variant that was circulating last year, if you're lucky, or maybe 2 or 3 years before. And so um that just didn't make sense to me. And this was like 15 years ago. Like I was like, why would they do this? I mean, and that's why they've never been able to also um produce like an HIV virus, because it also mutates very rapidly. And so that was another red flag for me. And then I saw this video of she's a Mexican veterinarian. She's a college professor, but she has master's degrees and a master's degree and I think two PhDs in like epidemiology and immunology. So I saw this video that she posted and talking about these new products, and I found out a lot about them because I didn't know. I really didn't know. I mean, they told us very little information. And so that was another thing. I'm here on my handout. I she has since written a book. She has a Telegram channel where she's totally about the science and about all of the scientific studies that have come out and da da da. And this book has, if you're the, or someone is the kind of person that always asks for, and where's the link and where's the reference and etc., then that's a very good source to find all of that information. And so um, then when I really said, okay, something is really wrong here, is when they started mandating experimental products because they were experimental. And then when I said, okay, this is it with no informed consent process.
Mhm.
I have I have translated so many informed consents that I can literally write one from memory right now, you know?
That's great. Yeah.
And so
Inside
like
now.
literally
Yeah. Like, this is not that.
and so, when they started to do that, they, I got emails from my two sons' colleges. They were going to different colleges. And so I sat down and I wrote an 18-page document to request an exemption from the mandate. And it was purely based on information that I had taken from the FDA, from the websites of the FDA, the CDC, the WHO, Johns Hopkins University. Like, of course, I made no mention of nothing, right? Just purely scientific information that was already out there. And of course, um, they denied the exemptions, right? And so I also did my own fact checking. Um, I started, um, looking for information. It was out there. I mean, it was being censored like all over the place. But if you knew where to look, you could find like Odyssey and Rumble and some Telegram channels and stuff like that. So I started following the Corona Investigative Committee. That's where I found a lot of information. And um, I also, after my one of my sons, the younger one, he had to get vaccinated first because he was going to a private college, and the other one was going to a state college. And the state college said, unless, when the vaccine gets approved, then it will become mandatory. So I took him and I did all sorts of magic, honestly, um, to get that stuff out of him. I I downloaded the antibody against the adenoviral vector for the vaccine that he was getting, and like a lot of things. I did candles and this and that. But anyway, after he got vaccinated, I got this uh, video from a friend. It was a clip, and if somehow it hadn't been taken down from YouTube, but it's a Dark Horse podcast. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
And it was the 3-hour long thing. I found it later on his website with Robert Malone and Steve Kirsch and Brett Weinstein. Stein. Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. And so that's when I learned that the spike protein is cytotoxic. And I literally went into a fit of rage. I I I felt like I had failed to protect my children,
Dad.
you know, because I could have hired a lawyer to get an exemption. I tried to get a medical exemption, but um, the doctors that I was able, that were giving out exemptions, they didn't give them out for my state. um, and then I even thought I should have lied. I should have said that I'm a Catholic or Christian or whatever, right? I should have lied, but I have this thing about not lying, like this really, really deep thing about not lying. But I should have.
Mm.
So anyway, when I wrote this, I'm just going to give you like this is this document. If you want to read it, it's on my Substack. It's actually the first post, um, the first thing that I ever posted. But I I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I wrote there because I think that this is very important for something that I'm going to tell you later. Um, so back then, um, they knew, right, that vaccines have not been shown to stop infection and or transmission of SARS-CoV-2. And now in the handout, it says April 2023 because I did do like a talk about this in 2023. And so I just reused the content. But, that hasn't changed. We know that they don't stop infection or transmission. And now we also know that they didn't even study it for that. They didn't even study it for that. Right. Um, and then, um, you know, there was increasing evidence back then of post-vaccination infections, or what they called breakthrough infections, which is also in this document. I quoted this article by and that was in the New York Times. Um, the CDC all of a sudden just stopped counting breakthrough infections
Mhm.
because they didn't think that was important to count,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So, okay.
Keep coming. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, why bother?
Yeah.
And then, okay, so another thing that I said, that the current vaccine technologies had never been approved for human use ever. Um, and then the clinical trials were still ongoing, and they were only reporting something that is known as relative risk versus absolute risk.
Mhm.
So relative risk made the vaccines 95% effective. Absolute risk made them like 1.5 effective.
Yeah.
Okay. And so um, this is like verbatim what the CDC's website said. We are still learning. Like, notice the wordplay here, right? We are still learning how well vaccines prevent you from spreading the virus. We are also still learning how long COVID vaccines protect people. We are still learning how many people have to be vaccinated before the population can be considered protected. We are still learning how effective the vaccines are against new variants of the virus. And so, anyway, in the handout, I also put, like the people that I am following currently, um, because there's also a lot of people who are, I don't want to talk badly about anybody because they've all done their part, but then they're also trying to make money out of this.
Mhm.
And so, just keep your antennas up, right? And really, really, really look into something before, because right now, like the whole craze is how to get this thing out of my body, right? And they're offering so much stuff. And they're, all these people, and they're coming up with these supplements and $70 a bottle. And it's just like, I don't, just, I will talk later on about what I think about these things. But for example, they're recommending methylene blue. And I can tell you, like, also in lab practice, we had to inject rabbits with methylene blue.
Mm.
And, when, um, how do you call it? I'm sorry, I'm just thinking in Spanish right now.
Mm.
Um, like a friend, the first one who had to inject the rabbit, he, accidentally injected it into the vein.
Mm.
And the rabbit was squealing so badly.
Mm.
He suffered so much
Mm.
that the professor said, this has got to stop. Who can take the rabbits home and take care of them? Um, and and then people are saying that you have to, get EDTA, which I used in like many lab practices. And I'm like, how are they saying that to inject EDTA into your veins? Like, that's, please don't.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right? I know what it does.
Mm.
It's, oh my god. And so just, you know, I will be talking about this. Like I said, a lot of people are trying to find a solution, right? But just make sure that you do your research first and that you really look into stuff before you start taking anything. Okay? Um, because that's another thing that a lot of people that are trying to get rid of this, they're getting even sicker because they're trying to get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
With other stuff. And so uh, I don't know, it's just like it's heartbreaking. Really, it really
Heartbreaking.
is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's so hard to get clear information and yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
so that's what I'm trying to do, right? And so people who are here again, they might know this, but I'm just going to say it for if they want to share it, right? Um
just again, for anybody who just showed up, the handouts are on my main page of my Substack. You'll see the post, and I'll be fielding questions for Claudia along the way here. So feel free to ask questions while you have them. You don't have to wait till the end.
mhm. And so, well, what we know now, like in 2023, and this has just been confirmed and confirmed and confirmed, is that the spike protein is cytotoxic, that it continues to be produced for at least 2 months back in 2023. Now it's 709 days,
Mhm.
the longest study, people will say, well, it's only 2 years, right? And I said, well, no, that's when they stopped the study. We don't know how
Exactly.
long,
We don't know.
right? We don't know how long. And so we also know now that the mRNA stays in the body. We also know that it does not have what they call a stop codon. I don't know if you know what that is, but so mRNA naturally it has a stop codon. So so it knows how much of a protein to produce, right? Or your DNA also has stop codons because if not, the mRNA would just transcribe everything, right?
Mm.
And so um, the this mRNA doesn't have a stop codon, so it just continues and continues and continues to produce spike protein while it's in your body. Mhm. A codon is like a three base pair, but that's not important. So it's just it doesn't have a switch to turn it off.
Mm.
Okay, which our body does. Otherwise, we would just be creating proteins like until we exploded, basically.
Got it.
Okay. And so we also know that it doesn't stay at the injection site and that it accumulates in the organs. Um, we also know that it crosses every single blood barrier in our body, every single one. Um, we also know that it increases the risk of severity and hospitalization um, with repeated vaccination. And then we also know that it causes something called ADE, which is auto body disease enhancement and immune exhaustion, immune imprinting,
Mhm.
molecular mimicry, like a lot of things that shouldn't be going on. And and we also know that spike protein shedding is going on, and also um, lipid nanoparticle and mRNA shedding is going on.
Mm.
That's what we knew in 2023. And so in this document, I also, like I took a screenshot of bears and by June of 2021, which is when I wrote this document, there had been almost 6,000 deaths reported and never, ever, ever in the 36 years that I have been translating, because I've also translated for, documentation for drugs that have been recalled from the market. I remember translating one that was recalled because it caused strokes in 3 people.
Mm. Mm.
And this one, by June, like 6 months later, it had already caused 6,000 deaths. And that's
At
bears.
least. Yeah. Yeah. We
In
know that those
bears,
are underreported so
yes,
much. Yeah.
totally underreported. And so even, like a Harvard study that says that it was underreported. And so, hmm. So then, like a lot of people that I used to, I tried sharing this with my people, and telling them, please, don't get these products. And they were like, well, I'm afraid of getting COVID. I have, this and that, um, and comorbidity or whatever. They do say that it reduces, the risk of severity or death. And so I did, later on I found out that, for example, in Pfizer's clinical trial, they had 22,000 people in the vaccine group and 22,000 people in the control group, right? And so in the vaccine group, one person died, and in the control group, two people died. And so they said it's 100% effective.
Oh my God.
That's how they calculated the 100% effectiveness.
Wow.
And so then there's this whole thing about really, COVID has a very low, very, very low fatality rate. It really has. Like you'll see it in the handout, but for people 0 to 19 years, it's 0.001%. Like literally no chance, right? And it goes up, and from 70 to 79 years, it's 2.5%, which is more or less what the flu. Um, it's around like the flu.
Mhm.
And so, um, I also, uh, and I think I just posted something about it, on Substack, that how can you really tell if there's any, how can you really prove that a vaccine helps save lives with a disease that has such a low fatality rate? You can't.
Yeah.
You
My
cannot.
problem with the scientific method. Yeah, you cannot.
Yeah, and I've always said that, I have always said, and I've always said that clinical trials are fundamentally flawed because there are so many variables
Exactly.
that you can't say this works or this doesn't work, and we're so different. We're very similar, but we're so different
Yep.
that what might work for one person might be disastrous for another, right?
Yeah.
And so how can they say that it, like, how can they even just explain that they have been able to prove that how do they know that that person wouldn't have died anyway,
Mhm. Mhm. Yes.
or
Yeah.
that that person wouldn't have gone to the hospital anyway? It's like they can't say that,
Mm. Mm.
and they have nothing to compare it to either. And so
Back
that
to
was
it being a
another.
religion.
Exactly,
Mm.
exactly. And so another really thing that like really interesting thing that a lot of people don't know about is that they changed the definition of vaccine
Yeah.
in September of 2021.
Yeah.
So this definition, the first one, or before September 2021, is a product that stimulates a person's immune system to produce immunity to a specific disease, protecting the person from that disease. So that means if, that definition, they emphasized immunity, meaning it will prevent infection, right?
Mhm.
And then they said a preparation, right? It's no longer a product, it's a preparation that is used to stimulate the body's immune response against diseases. So now what they are doing is that they removed the word immunity and they changed it to immune response.
Mm.
So it's just a reaction. They're just trying to
Mm.
make your body have an have a reaction, like it would react to anything else, to an allergen or whatever, right? And so why does this matter? Because they changed this definition after the public was becoming, aware of the fact that these these injections weren't working. They weren't working. So they were trying to cover their, you know. Um and so anyway, another thing that I don't think that a lot of people know is that in a traditional vaccine, um what they inject you with is either, like the microorganism, because there's also vaccines against bacteria, but it's attenuated, or they injected like a small part of the virus, right? But they're injecting you with a definite amount,
Mhm.
right? And in this case, they're injecting you with the genetic instructions for your body to produce a foreign toxic protein.
Right. Right. Endlessly,
Definite.
indefinitely. Yep. Yep.
They told us that it would stay in the arm. It does not. It crosses every single barrier. It goes everywhere. And that's not good. And
No.
so then there's another thing. The FDA classified this product as a gene therapy, but we were told that they were vaccines, right?
Mhm.
Um, it would have had to be classified as a gene therapy. And according to the FDA's definition, this is a medical intervention based on the modification of the genetic material of living cells.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, so, but they said that they were vaccines because this would have classifying them as gene therapies would have required years, like even more years than a
Mhm.
traditional vaccine, which is like 10 to 15.
Mhm.
Um, of course, it would have slowed down approval timelines, and it would potentially have triggered public hesitation due to the term gene therapy.
Yes. Yes, it would have.
You think?
Yeah. But we know
Okay,
they weren't going for public hesitation. They were going for public brainwashing. Yes.
exactly. And so they made the regulatory distinction, deciding that mRNA and adenoviral vector COVID-19 vaccines would be regulated as vaccines rather than gene therapies. And okay, so they
And
intentionally.
vaccines, if it's a vaccine, right, it's protected from lawsuits.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing that I did not include here, but yeah, in 1986, I believe the Vaccine Prep Act or something like that, it's called, and all manufacturers are protected from lawsuits, and so they intentionally the FDA and the CDC intentionally excluded COVID products from the gene therapy label, even though Moderna itself, in early investor documents, described its technology as gene therapy disguised as a vaccine.
Oh my gosh. They always tell you. It's always in the fine print.
This is super 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 important.
Yes.
Just remember what you just said,
Yes.
okay? This is super important at an energetic level.
Yeah.
Um, and so I will be getting into that in a bit. Um, and then in the SEC filing, Moderna said our mRNA is considered a gene therapy product by the FDA, and yet these products were not regulated as gene therapies, and they're still not regulated as gene therapies. And so um, I went ahead and asked ChatGTP. So, what do you think about this? Right? And so this is the answer. Bottom line, the C19 shots meet the FDA's own technical definition of gene therapy. but they were reclassified for regulatory and strategic reasons to fast track approval, as a public messaging strategy, to simplify rollout, and due to a desire to maintain trust by using the more familiar vaccine label and avoid public concern, and therefore vaccine hesitancy. So, whew, okay, so now that we know all about gene therapies, a question that I get a lot is, well, this won't apply that much in the States because most of the people who got vaccinated got either the Moderna or the Pfizer. Um, but some of them got the Johnson and Johnson, and now there's also the Novavax one. So um, they asked me, so I got a different one, right? Am I okay? Am I good? And yeah, they're not alike. They're not the same thing. So in the handout, you're gonna find like of and some of, well, the mRNA vaccines are just Moderna and Pfizer. The viral vector vaccines are AstraZeneca and Johnson& Johnson, and then others that weren't available in the States with Sputnik and CanSino. And then inactivated virus vaccines are the no, none of them were available in the States. And Novavax is a protein subunit vaccine. So what they do is they took like a little part of it and they produce it synthetically, and that's what you get injected with. Um, and so I just like also put in the handout like a oh my god, a chart um sort of with the differences between these types of vaccines. But the adenoviral vector vaccine, it's I think it's I don't know, I can't say better, but less risky. And I have heard other scientists say this, that if you got one of those vaccines and you're not you didn't present with um, side effects shortly thereafter, that you're probably okay. hmm And so, what it
Really
all?
quickly,
Yep.
sorry, go a couple questions.
Okay.
Will handouts have recommended sites to consult to do our research? Randolph asks.
Um. mm, I only, well, I do have a reference section at the end of the. I'll have it at the end of the second handout. I don't remember if I do have it here, if I left it here.
Yeah.
No, I deleted it from this one, but for the second handout that I will be handing out on Thursday, I do have like a list of references, and I do have a list of the people that I follow, where you will find all of this information, and people that I still follow because they have not politicized this. Because I believe that they are, they're basically all scientists. Some of them are medical doctors, and they're not trying to make money out of this. Those are the people that I follow. So I do provide a list in the handout of the people that I follow, and then a list of references. And in the other document that I wrote like 5 years ago, that also has all the references in it as well. But you can always contact me on Substack, or or follow me, and I usually, when something new comes out, um oh, something new did come out today. I will usually repost it. But that they found in an Italian study that the spike protein destroys the is it pineal gland,
I know, yeah. hmm
that it destroys. So
Yeah. It's
yeah.
bioweapon sums it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and the it's intuition, right? It's our intuition. It's our gateway to other senses that are
That's the pineal gland is the third eye. It literally, the pineal gland has rods and cones like an eye.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so,
Mhm.
ooh, I'm gonna have to wait, let me see if I can do this. It's just that I don't know why I'm running low on battery. I shouldn't, but
Yeah.
let's go. Can you see me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, and um, so anyway, for just for people who don't know, or if you want to share it with people who are like completely oblivious, I have had people ask me, so what is the spike protein? Right. And so, just so you know, the spike protein, it's like these little spikes that are on the virus, if you've ever seen like a drawing of the virus.
Mhm.
And those, um, we have receptors in our cells, right? And they bind to those receptors. They're called ACE2 receptors, and then that's how they inject their genetic material into the cell, and so your cell starts producing more viruses. hmm And so that's essentially the spike protein. hmm And the spike protein is what all of these vaccines make your body produce. And so we all thought that they didn't know that the spike protein was cytotoxic, which means toxic to your cells.
Mhm.
But they did know. They did know. They could have used any other part of the virus. They
Mm.
could have used the
Mm.
nucleocapsid. They could have used anything else,
I see.
but they somehow chose the spike protein. And so, um, I don't know. I'm not going to go into like everything that causes. Probably everybody knows already. Just from seeing the people around them, etc. Right? Um, but okay, so why is it like concerning? Some of the things that it does cause is that it binds to the AC2 receptors, not only where you got injected, but also in your blood vessels, in your heart, in your lungs, in your kidney, in your brain. And so everything,
Mhm.
this leads to inflammation and also to dysregulation of your immune system. Then it also triggers blood clot formation because um, the spike protein, when your cells are producing it, um, it expresses on the surface of the cells, right? And so now your cells have these little spikes.
Mm. Mm.
And when these cells are lining your blood vessels, the spikes are going into your blood vessels, right? And so the blood cells start to clump together because they can't flow freely through your
Mm.
blood vessels because they have these things that are stopping them.
Sucking.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so they're also, like I said, they're crossing all of the barriers, but the most important one is a blood brain barrier. And so they're contributing to a lot of neurological symptoms as well. They also mimic human proteins. Back, I don't know, like maybe 4 years ago, they had identified 22 proteins that are very similar to the spike protein. And so what happens? Your immune system is basically under attack, right? Because you're producing this foreign thing, and all of a sudden it sees this other protein that is really like it, but it's in a frenzy, and so it starts attacking that one.
Mm.
And or if your cell is expressing the spike protein, it starts attacking your cells, your
Mm.
own cells, and so it's leading to a lot of like autoimmune issues as well.
Mm.
And it also disrupts mitochondrial function, which we all know that it's one of the main causes of one of the main things that happen in cancer cells.
Mhm.
Um, and like I said, it's persisting in tissues for a really long time after injection. And this has been documented in animal and autopsy studies as well. And so, um, like I said, it's not localized, it can persist, it can circulate, blah, blah, blah. Um, and then they also told us, like in these, in this first document that I wrote, they were also saying, okay, so it can cause myocarditis and pericarditis, and it can cause cytopenic thrombo, whatever, and also Guillain-Barré syndrome. And you can read this like in the CDC website, right? But all of these events are rare. And so they never define what rare is,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
that's another wordplay that they use a lot. And so here in the handout, I just posted a graph that was in the documents, in the Pfizer documents, um, that that were released. And that's another thing that maybe some people don't know, right? That they wanted to keep these documents confidential for 75 years.
Mm.
And through a Freedom of Information Act request, they had to disclose them. And so I just, put a screenshot there. I can share. I mean, if you Google it, you can find it. But I can also share that document with you, or on Substack if anybody's interested. And so here, they are required to produce like what they call interim reports when they're conducting the clinical trial. They were conducting the clinical trial, but they were also conducting like a phase 4 at the same time that they were doing 2 and 3, which is when the vaccines rolled out. Um, Clinical trials go through different phases. So phase 1 is when they only do it. Well, there's preclinical when they do it in animal models. Then phase 1 is when they do it on a very small number of healthy volunteers. Then phase 2 is when they do it in a small number, not so small, but phase 2 is they do it in sick people, right, or with the condition that they're trying to study. And then phase 3, it's just like a larger number. And then phase 4 is post marketing experience. And so here, they hadn't even finished phase 2 and phase 3 trials, and they were already, producing reports post marketing, post authorization adverse event reports.
Mm.
And so I came across this document, and it's like 12 pages of adverse events of special interest, because there's also different types of adverse events. Some are just adverse events. Then there are serious adverse events, and then adverse events of special interest, which are really, it's just another way to say safety signals. Like, we really need to look into this.
Mm.
And in this report, which was published on February 28th of 2021. So this is 3 months after the initial rollout, not even 3 months after. Um, it's like 12 pages of just line after line, but it's not like a table, right? It's just
Mm.
all of these adverse events of special interest as if
Mm.
they were written in a paragraph.
Oh my gosh.
And in the initial ones, it's 40 pages. 40 pages,
Just line after line.
line after line, 40 pages. And so I went a total of adverse events of special interest, 1,212
Oh my god.
before they rolled it out. And so here, I said, "Okay, so I'm not gonna read all of this because I'm gonna start throwing up." Um, and I thought of, "Okay, so let's just do a search for death." And in this interim report, published in February, of 2021, it says, "Death neonatal," and it says, "Sudden unexplained death in epilepsy." And so it's like they they already knew.
We knew. Yeah. We knew.
And so,
And so many people knew. Like, uh,
yeah. And so, and people all around the world,
yes.
it's not
Yeah.
just, this just didn't happen here. Um, but anyway, so again, like saying, well, how rare are these, right? Because that's what they're saying. Oh, they're rare. Don't worry about it. So many, like billions of doses have been applied. So if you do like a percentage, it's very rare, whatever. But my thing is that when it happens to somebody who's close to you, it stops being rare,
Exactly. Exactly.
right?
Yep.
And I have been sitting behind a computer literally for most of the past 36 years of my life. And so, just in my own like infinitesimal social circle, I can tell you that once removed, not even twice removed, once removed, I know people who like sudden fainting, persistent dizziness, blurry and double vision, brain fog, postmenopausal bleeding, menstrual irregularities, recurring infections like UTIs and ear infections, reactivation of mononucleosis, reactivation of shingles, of herpes, scleroderma, strokes. I know people who have had strokes. Um, just this past December, a friend died of mad cow disease.
Mm, sorry.
Yeah, and another friend died of like leukemia and ovary cancer,
The cancers are coming now.
aggressive new onset cancers. Like, and I know like maybe 7 or 8 people. Um, and some of them, have already they're not longer with us. And miscarriages, and I also know 2 people sudden adult death syndrome.
Mm,
One of them was like a 20-year-old girl,
mm,
and, another person who I'm currently working with, um, he went in for something completely unrelated, and, um, and after a blood transfusion, he got 6 units of blood, and he went into systemic multi-organ failure and coma,
mm, mm.
and he is, currently doing better. So,
Mm, mm,
yeah,
okay.
when we finally put those 2 things together, right? Because, like, not even the doctors could really understand, like, what happened. They're not connecting the dots. They're not connecting the dots.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it ruins everything.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And so, what I really wanna say right now is, does this mean that everybody is gonna get, you know it doesn't, right? We're all different. Our immune systems are different. And on Thursday, I'm going to be talking about what I'm offering, but it's not the only thing that's out there. Um, I don't want to leave people with this, like feeling, right? There is a lot we can do about it. Okay. And so some people, um, they say, well, a lot of people, if you go on Instagram or Facebook, they're like, yay, I didn't get the shot. And I don't regret it, whatnot. And some of them are even, I don't know, they're being a little bit aggressive. Um, but, but, also a lot of people who, reach out to me, they say, well, I didn't get the shot, so I'm in the clear, right?
Mhm.
And, unfortunately, no.
Mhm.
That's the really, like, concerning part of this, because it stopped being, like a my body, my choice thing,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so, um, like, a lot of people will tell you, "Well, no, shedding is impossible," but it is. It's more than possible. Just think about, when you get food poisoning, what does your body do? It's gonna start vomiting, and it's gonna, anywhere it can go out, it is gonna, you know, and, and the same thing happens at the cellular level, right?
Mhm.
Um, I mean, it's a mechanism that has been known forever, and even for other vaccines, like for the smallpox vaccine, right there on the package insert, it says that you can't, if you just got vaccinated or a child just got vaccinated, that they can't be around immunocompromised people because of
Oh,
shedding,
right.
right? And then there's a whole thing about, um, that gene therapies, according to FDA regulations, they have to undergo studies regarding shedding. And so they skipped that whole part by
Mhm.
classifying them as vaccines.
Right.
And so the issue of shedding is, like, people will tell me, no, it's impossible. If I post something on Instagram, I have this person that keeps and keeps. And keeps. It's like she's driving me crazy. Uh, she even, I said, well, like, I'm a biochemical engineer and I've been a pharmaceutical translator for 36 years, and I can tell you that shedding is possible. There are many mechanisms that have been described. And I said, what are your qualifications? And she said, I can read and understand. And I was like, oh, wow, that wasn't aggressive at all. And so, okay, so if you can read and understand, here's a book that you can read. And she's like, in which part of the book is a scientific link or whatever to, and I said, just read the book, just read the book.
You hit me up.
Yes. So anyway, so yeah, they skipped the studies about vaccine shedding, but there's a lot of people, there's a lot of people who are sensitive to shedding.
Mhm.
And they're getting, like, some of them, like, for example, the first time I ever went out, like, to a large gathering, the following day, I went to a wedding, and the following day, I woke up with this massive headache, and I never get headaches. And I started spotting, and I was like, "Wow, this is weird," because, like, I went through menopause like 5 yeah, like 5 years ago or earlier, right? And, but I didn't, I'm not the kind of person that gets all flustered. I just let it go by. I never go to doctor, nothing. Right. And so the next time I flew to Mexico and I went to a retreat. And the day after the flight, I was like, okay, I'm spotting again. I'm bleeding now. Like, what? And that's when I started to put two and two together, right? I said, this is shedding. And I stayed
Interesting.
first at a place, a friend who wasn't vaccinated and went away. And then we went to the retreat and then I started again. And I said, okay, so, I mean, there's like a lot of anecdotal evidence. Of course, they're never going to conduct clinical trials to prove that they're shedding. But I tend to believe more in anecdotal evidence, because these people have nothing to gain.
Mm, mm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
They have nothing to gain for lying or for making this stuff up, you know? And so um it's also even in the Pfizer's clinical protocol, which I like the issue of shedding.
Mm,
It says, if a person is pregnant and she is exposed to somebody who's recently vaccinated, that they have to report it as exposure. And it says, and this is in the clinical trial protocol, which you can Google and you can download from the internet. Um,
mm,
okay, so it says a male participant who is receiving or has discontinued studied intervention exposes a female partner prior to or around the time of conception. That's considered exposure during pregnancy. Also, a female who is found to be pregnant and being exposed or having been exposed to study intervention due to environmental exposure.
wow.
So they know that it's not only, from close, intimate contact.
Mm,
They know. They knew.
mm,
Um, Then a female family member or healthcare provider reports that she is pregnant after having been exposed to the study intervention by inhalation or skin contact.
mm,
And so they knew.
mm, mm,
They knew, right? And I put, like other in the handout, I included others. So what I'm thinking is, and this is like the most important part of what I want to talk about today, that if people knew that they, like people who still get the jabs, right? They're continuing to get the jabs because it does go down. Well, in some people, it does go down, like the amount of spike protein that they're producing. But that if they knew that this is happening and that they might be harming the people around them,
mhm,
the people that they love, that they might stop taking them,
mm.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that is why, for me, it is so important to start getting people to share this information.
Mm,
Because I feel that, if you get it from somebody that you already know, from somebody that you trust,
mhm,
then it's just going to be so much easier to make them listen, right?
mm,
And another thing is, what we're seeing is a lot of people saying we have to fight back and they have to be held accountable and put them in jail and da 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 da. And that's not the energy that we want.
mm, mm.
We are not going to make them listen by
Interesting.
screaming at them
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and coming at them with our swords drawn.
Mm,
It's not about that. It's not about that. It's about like starting to plant or just leaving like a little seed of information, right? And letting them choose um, if they want to pick it up and plant it and water it, you know? But
It's
I
an
really do
invitation.
feel yeah, exactly. And I really do feel that most people, they still keep going at this because they don't know.
Mm. People just don't know. Yes.
They don't know.
Yep. Yep.
And that if they knew, they would say, "Oh my god," right? And so I really appreciate that you are having me here today. I really, really like I can't even express because I think that that's what we need to do because okay, so there's another thing, right? There's more. If you can believe this. There's more.
Yeah. The rabbit hole is deep.
Yeah. Um in addition to shedding, which again in the handout like I put a list of the the uh, I'm sorry.
Mm, take your time.
Of the symptoms or the effects that I've seen in people because of shedding. And so I put them there in the handout. I'm not going to read them. Too many of them. And then also in the handout, I put like a list of other other things, that they're recommending. Again, please do your research. I will talk about this. It's so much stuff, but mostly I would stay away from anything that's pharmaceutical. Or just know that what they all have in common, except for like frequency based and other energy medicine approaches, which I really don't, I haven't looked into, like, scalar energy and orthomolecular medicine and stuff like that. I haven't really looked into that. But other than that, most of them, what they have in common is that they will take care of the symptoms, but not the spike protein.
Mhm.
Okay, so
I see.
they will help with for example, kinase, which was super, like popular. Um, it it helps dissolve fibrin, which is something that we naturally have in our body. And so it might help with the issue of microclotting, right? But it
Mhm.
doesn't really get rid of the spike protein, number one. And like I could go on and on and on. But just be aware that they may help, and especially for people who are sensitive to shedding, they may help with the symptoms, but it's still
Mhm.
symptom based, right? It's not going to the root cause. And so
Mhm.
next on Thursday, I will be talking about what I developed in terms of really, really, really taking care of the root cause. Okay, so what I developed, just like very succinctly, is holograms that dissolve the spike protein into light, but not only the spike protein, also the genetic material that encodes the spike protein.
Mhm.
So your body will stop producing.
Incredible.
Okay.
Mhm.
I will talk more about that um, next session.
Mhm.
And so the thing is that also not only the spike protein is being shed, but the mRNA is being shed,
Mm.
the lipid nanoparticles are being shed. And then there's this whole thing. I don't know if you've heard about the DNA plasmids that they found in most vials. You haven't heard of that? Okay, so an independent researcher, his name is Kevin McKernan. He was one of the people who worked on the Human Genome Project. He started just analyzing vials. And what he found is our DNA plasmids, they're like circular DNA that they used to produce, like mass produce the vaccines. And so that's another thing. Pfizer, they submitted one manufacturing process, and they ended up using another one that was, they submitted and got approved, and then um, uh, they used an entirely different one. So what they did is they used DNA plasmids. They injected them into E. coli in these huge vats, and then the E. coli would produce the mRNA, and they were supposed to separate or isolate the mRNA from the DNA plasmids, but they didn't. And so they're injecting you with DNA plasmids that are designed to go into E. coli, which is a bacteria that we have in our microbiome, right? And and so they're turning your microbiome into a permanent spike protein factory.
A factory.
Hmm. And also, he also found, and then he also found, and this is only in the Pfizer vaccines, they included something that's called an SV40 promoter. That means simian virus 40, which they found in polio vaccines back in the 1950s and 1960s. They they canceled that product, or they recalled that vaccine because they found out that this this gene, um, it caused cancer in like so many people, and they they included it, and they didn't report it. I think I'm pretty sure that they didn't report it to the FDA, so they included it so they could mass produce it. It's but this gene in humans, what it does is that it suppresses a cancer suppressing gene that we have.
Ah.
Okay. So that's getting injected into people. And I've also created something to get rid of the SV40 promoter. Um, and and there's something else. Oh, okay. So yeah. So in addition to these DNA plasmids, what they would do is that, they would crush them up. They would crush up the DNA plasmids, and but then they didn't get them out of the vials. So they were injecting you with these fragments, and um that were coded or coding for what they call aberrant proteins, just like proteins, like just random proteins.
Random. Mhm.
Hmm. And some of them, and there's like I read, and this I read, like, maybe I don't have the reference to it because I didn't write it down. Maybe 2 years ago, that they thought that maybe one of these aberrant proteins um, was coding for like a protein that is very similar to what the spiders use to produce their webs, and that's why people were getting like these long filaments in their veins, that they were saying that they were blood clots, but they were like more like fibrous things. And so they think that that's why, they were taking like these really, really, really long strings out of people's veins, um, when they were embalming them. And so they think that that's um, that may be one of the causes, because they don't really know why people are creating like these really long things, because if they were blood clots, they would be red, and these things are white, right? And well, I already talked about that. And yes, it's also possible that the lipid nanoparticles are also being expelled through breath, sweat, and other bodily fluids. So, what this means is that even the people who decided not to get the vaccines, they're kind of, um, well, they're kind of getting vaccinated by proxy, right? And so it's just what I want to end with is there is a way out, right? And a lot of people who didn't get vaccinated but are sensitive, or even who did get vaccinated but are sensitive to shedding, they're starting to isolate, they're starting to, and it's not about that. It's not about that, but it's about really, really starting to raise awareness and starting to do it from a place of love and compassion, not of, oh my God, you got vaccinated, stay away from me. No, it's, we were all duped.
We've
At
all been
some
duped.
point,
Absolutely, exactly. We're all in this together.
at some point, we all bought into this, all of us.
Mhm.
And, like I even remember that, I used to wear my mask and go to the supermarket and put hand sanitizer afterwards, and clean off my phone and my keys and everything, right? And I was driving back. I had taken off my mask, and all of a sudden I got like this itch in my nose. And I remembered that I hadn't put my hand sanitizer on after going to the supermarket. And so I took my hand sanitizer spray and I sprayed it on my nose.
Right.
It was,
The
I had to,
bonkers ways that we responded. Yes.
I had to stop the car. Like my eyes were, I even thought of like, it was
Working.
so painful. It was so
Imagine.
painful. It's not even funny. Yeah. And so I even thought that I was gonna start this, like, page on Facebook saying, like, "What's the stupidest thing you've done since COVID started?"
Yes,
Right?
yes.
I'm gonna start, and now your turn, but
Yeah.
but I said, "No, maybe it's just a little bit too soon to start joking about this."
Mm.
But what I'm trying to say is that we we all gave it, bought into it at some point or another, right?
Totally. Yeah.
And so my yeah, I was even gonna write like the like 7 simple steps to get us out of this collective mess,
Mhm.
and so I'm gonna share that with you.
Mm.
Okay, so the first one is step out of your fear. That's the first step. The second one is revoke your consent, because we all consented to this. Okay, I am I'm like a super complicated person, and so the more I write about it, the longer it gets. But I I I wrote like what I would say, and I included it in the handout. And I'm seeing that Bill said that he didn't consent. I will explain how you did. Okay, so I'm gonna read this consent to you, because the thing is that, yeah, we think that we didn't consent, but they have ways to trick us, and they tricked us all. They tricked us all. Okay? The first way that they tricked us was they put that information out there. They put the information out there. It all of the information is out there if you knew where to look. So that's the first thing that they did. And then right now, if you're next to a vaccinated person, for example, you are consenting to getting vaccinated yourself.
Mhm.
That's awful. But you are consenting. Mhm.
Mhm.
And there's like a lot of other ways, right? When you say, I do not consent, you are consenting because they can energetically. So I'm going to be talking about like what's going on energetically, right? This is way, way, way bigger than we are able to see. This goes way beyond, politics and presidents and goes way beyond. But when you say I do not consent, they can take the energy away from the not, and you're saying I do consent. That's another loophole. So when you are revoking your consent, you cannot use negatives.
Mm.
And that's why you have to say, I revoke my consent.
Yeah.
Okay, so I read I wrote like my version and it's in the handout and you can add or delete or whatever to revoke your consent because there's another way that we can give our consent. That people can give consent for us on our behalf. For example, our parents, when we were children, they can give consent on our behalf. Hmm. And then there's this whole thing about like when they register you, like for a birth certificate and for the social security number, and this goes on all over the world, that they're actually signing you over sort of to the government. Okay, so this is another thing that I wasn't aware of. But that's another way that somebody can give consent on your behalf. And, they're doing it unwillingly, they're doing it unknowingly, unconsciously, but that's how they trick us. Oh,
Mm.
you know? And then there's soul contracts that we have made in this lifetime, in previous lifetimes, or so even soul contracts that your parents in previous lifetimes have made for you. And so it gets super, super, super complicated, right? And so that's why I wrote like I don't know, like 5,000 word replication of consent statement, right?
Cover the bases. Yes. Love
Right?
it.
And so, you can read it. Um, what I do want to say that you might want to wait until Thursday because I'm gonna explain like the last part of that statement on Thursday.
Mm.
Okay. And and yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that that's really important. So I was in my seventh step, right? I know I'm going over time. I'm sorry,
No
but I
problem.
just want to end with this. And so number two was revoke your consent, right? And then number three is ask for forgiveness from others because we also, all of us, right? At some point, or maybe not all of us, but most of us, at some point, we either shunned or ridiculed or criticized or whatever people who made a choice that was different from ours,
Mhm. Mhm.
people who made the other choice, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And then you also have to forgive others for doing the same to you, right?
Mhm.
And this is not gonna land well with most people, but you have to forgive the powers that be
Mhm.
and thank them, because if they hadn't done this, we would never have woken up,
Yes. Yes.
and we would be going to our 9 to 5, completely asleep,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And it's not
Triggered the
about
Great
like
Awakening. It is the catalyst for the Great Awakening. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so we really have to thank them.
Yeah. For
We have
real.
to thank them.
Yeah. And it is one. There's only one of us. So they played the villain, you know? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, good choice.
Yeah. Somebody had to.
Yeah, thank you.
They did.
Thank
They
you
did a
for
really
that
good
because
job.
I wouldn't have wanted to play that role. Thank you.
No,
Yeah.
no, no, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, that's a hard road.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I say, when people say, "Oh, they have to go to jail, be held accountable." Like, number 1, people who with power, they have even more power when they're behind bars.
Yeah, totally.
And and I know this for a fact, okay?
Yes.
I will tell you that story later, but, I know this for a fact.
Mhm.
And so and how many
Godfather taught us that.
exactly. It's a personal story. Yeah,
Yeah.
around the Godfather.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it doesn't work, and so why don't we start sending our energy towards like I say, and this is my motto, it's not about fighting back, it's about loving forward.
Totally. No more fighting.
No more fighting.
Mhm.
No more that's
It's
that
us and
has
them.
to
There's no them. There's no
yeah, that has to stop.
Yeah.
No more fighting.
Yeah.
And so, okay, forgive others, forgive the powers that be,
Mm.
and really important, forgive yourself
Mm. Yeah.
for whatever part of this that you bought into, or if you took the shots or didn't, or if you said or whatever, forgive yourself. We all do the best that we can with what we have at that time. And that's what we had at that time.
Yeah, but for the grace of God go I. We're always doing our best.
Exactly.
And we take, I like to say, 100% responsibility, but 0% blame.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
We don't do blame. Let's move. We're moving on.
Yeah,
We've taken
no. And I've
responsibility.
always
Yeah,
said that feeling guilty is useless. It really is useless. It
totally. It doesn't actually make sense. It's like, had I known better, right? And that goes for everybody,
mhm,
you know? Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And so, number 5, well, that was forgive yourself. And then number 6 is start sending love and light into the collective consciousness. Please,
Mm.
just start sending love and light. I was once in this course where they asked us, and okay, so a lot of you might be thinking, so what do I do to protect myself, right? Or because there's a lot of crap going on right now. Um, and just like from negative vibes or whatever, right? And so the best, 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 best protection is to open your heart.
Mhm.
It is to
Yeah.
open your heart
It's the most powerful field ever. Yes.
because you start radiating love. And so, okay, so if you're in anger, if you're in anxiety, if you're in, right? If you could see the waves of frequency, they're very low vibrational. These waves are like that, right?
Mhm.
They're super, super separate, the crests of the waves. If you're vibrating in authenticity and love and truth and light, They're super high vibrational frequencies. And so the crests are really together and they would look like this. So what am I drawing with my finger? It's a shield.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yes,
So when you're radiating love, you're literally creating a shield around you.
totally, totally, totally.
And when you're in
Yep.
fear and in anger and uncertainty, and it just, it has like so many holes.
It's so many holes energetically, and then it acts like a magnet. It like magnetizes more fear.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
because like
like
attracts
a
like.
black hole, like attracts like. Yeah,
Exactly.
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 Yeah.
And so I want you to do this exercise because this is what I was in this course and the instructor told us, so you're going to sit in front of a person that you don't know and you're going to look them in the eyes and you are going to open your heart to them.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my God, I can do that. We've been taught that we have to be guarded and,
Mhm.
especially with strangers and just like, I don't know, trauma and stuff like that. It just closes and closes and closes you up.
Mhm.
But so I sat in front of this person. He was a young guy. And I looked him in the eye and I made the conscious decision to open my heart to him. And I thought I was going to feel like totally vulnerable, right? So afraid and so vulnerable, just weak or, exposed. And it was the absolute opposite. I have never felt so empowered.
Totally. Yes. A robust field. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And so just try it,
Yep.
just try
Yep.
it and start opening your heart and start radiating love
Yeah.
and light.
Yes.
And like it's when you're with people who are radiating love, it just changes you, right?
Mhm.
And so you're doing the same. You're doing the same. When you're radiating love, you're changing other people's fields
Yes.
also.
Your medicine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's one really super easy thing that we can all start doing.
Love it. Beautiful.
Okay.
Beautiful.
And then last but not least, the last simple step to get us out of this collective mess
Mm.
is to share this information with everybody.
Yeah.
Make it go viral. Like really,
Yes. Yes. Share
we
it.
have to
Exactly.
start raising awareness because there's already another authorized mRNA vaccine, the RSV vaccine. And there's so many more products coming out soon. They're already under development. They're already in the final stages. So we still have time right
Mhm.
now. We
Mhm.
still have time because this thing is also changing people genetically. And that has been proven. Also in the handout. I forgot to say that, but so much information. So we have to reclaim our sovereignty. We have to reclaim everything, and we have to get other people to do the same, as many as we can,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
that's the way. Yeah, plus aerosolized spray and also in the water. It's just
Every
like,
at every angle. This math poisoning, the great
yeah,
poisoning, as they say. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so we really do have to just start getting people to join us, right? And we're going to do that with love and we're going to do that with from a place of neutrality and from a place of compassion. Yes, Alvaro. Love is the fix-all. Alvaro is
So,
my son,
ah.
I think. I hope.
You got another one if not.
Maybe there's another Alvaro, right? Might not be the only person who has that name, right? So,
He says yes.
yes.
Confirmed.
Gracias, corazón. Gracias.
Uh,
And so yeah, that's what we have to do. And that's it. In right now that I said gracias, I remembered something that is beautiful about the Spanish language. The same word that you use for to say thank you, which is gracias, you also use it for gracia, the grace of God. And so when you're saying gracias to somebody, you're actually wishing them for the grace of God to descend upon them. And so
Beautiful.
I want to say gracias to everybody. Gracias, gracias, gracias.
Gracias to you. Gracias, mi amor.
Mi corazón, mi vida.
Mi vida. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Totally.
And we'll see each other on Thursday.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, you can DM me on Substack or maybe comments, so everybody has access to the questions and to the answers. And I will talk about the solution that I am offering. And if we have time, I can maybe talk a little bit about other things that they're currently marketing if anybody has questions or wants to know my opinion about them. And if I have researched or if I have looked into them, then I will share it with you. And just anybody has questions or anything, no, that we may have missed.
Just going to scroll back to see if I missed anything. Beautiful comments. Um, just double check. Authenticity is the highest frequency. Yes. Meditate, love, and light. They're loving that.
We love you too, Bill.
We love you. Yeah, exactly. You're awesome. So are you. Fraud. Yeah. Yep. Is there a way to test the levels of shedding in our exhalations to see how much at risk we are to others?
No, unfortunately, well, there is a test. I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Pierre Corey. They're starting to develop a test that could measure like the amount of spike protein that is in your urine, but I don't know when they're going to get that approved. But here's my test. Okay, ask your body.
Mhm.
We have a pendulum that is integrated into our body. Okay. And what you have to do is you have to sort of press a little bit. And you have to start asking it like yes or no questions. But in 99% of the cases, the yes is when they stick and the no is when they slide. Okay. But don't just go like that. It has to be with a little bit of pressure. hmm
Mhm.
And so you're going to say, for example, is my name Patricia? And my fingers are going to slide. Okay. But I'm doing like a little bit of pressure here. And I say, is my name Claudia?
Mhm.
And I'm really doing it. They won't slide. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you can start asking, okay, so do I have spike protein in my body right now? I don't.
Mhm.
Okay. Mm, what else could you ask? They're like very, very specific questions. They don't ask vague questions.
Mhm.
And actually, that's what I do with because, people have asked me, "Do you have a way to measure, right, if what you're offering works?" Um, and I said, "Unfortunately, I don't, because I don't have access to mRNA and DNA sequencing equipment." Um, but I do I do this, and I do ask them to do this, or to just use a pendulum, if you know how to use a pendulum, they're very easy to learn how to use. You just have to, keep asking it questions that you already know the answers to, so you can define what your yes is and what your no is. And but something quantifiable, I don't think that that's possible yet. Um
You have your results though.
Yeah, and I
You have
do,
positive
yeah, I
results. Yeah.
also have, like, the anecdotal evidence of,
Yes.
people
Yeah.
who have. So, but yeah,
Yeah. This
that's
is muscle testing, energy testing is beautiful addition to what I teach too, right? We're just listening to your body. And this is a good tool to remind people. I'm going to go on Anima Mundi, the website that Miriam suggested with all these beautiful, supplements and things. But it's like I need to feel through my own body, right? Which ones feel right? She gave so many beautiful things, but every body is different, as you said. So yeah, muscle testing is a nice way to do it.
yeah, and people, like, I always tell people, you have to, ask your body,
Yeah,
because the body never lies. But some people have a hard time with that because they're still not very connected.
disembodied. Yeah, yeah, but
And so,
it's yeah. It can
yeah, no,
be easier than you think, and maybe we could just, I don't know, just bring everybody into their body on Thursday or something. A muscle test I like to do is just, like, sitting naturally, and then there's a yes or a no. Our body just does yes or no, and the very, very basics, it's attraction or aversion,
yeah, and
and
there's
so if
even
your
like a
body goes like that or it goes like
exactly.
that. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that. You can also
Yep.
use your whole body as a
Yep.
pendulum, right? You
Mm.
just stand up, feet parallel, come into your body. You ask the question, and your body will. If
I've done
it's
that
a
with
yes,
women in dating, it's like, "Do you like the guy?" It's like, "Yes." "Oh, no, I don't." You know?
exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
We are simple creatures in the very, very basic,
Yeah,
so to feel the body, to allow the body to express themselves.
yeah, exactly,
Give 'em a
exactly.
minute to say their piece, yeah. Um, I think the last one here is Ayana said she wanted to talk to you about metaphysics, and I think we could have some really powerful conversations about energetics. Really appreciate this conversation, so maybe Ayana, you wanna DM Claudia?
Yeah, and please do come on Thursday, because I will be talking a lot more about what's going on, like, at the etheric interdimensional levels.
Yeah, gonna be great. Absolutely. So 4 o'clock Pacific again on Thursday. The handout is currently on my main page. It's going to go in the recording text, and then same process will happen Thursday. It'll be on my main page, and then once I post the recording, it'll go in the text, and then you can ask questions in the comments
Mhm.
on both occasions.
Yep, and I will make sure to go to the page and, see if there are any comments, so I can, if you can tag me or something. Can you tag people on
I'll
Substack?
tag you. Yep, yep.
Yeah,
I'll tag you. And yeah,
that would be great, so that way I can, whenever somebody asks a new question, I can get a notification, and yeah, and answer to the best of my ability.
perfect,
Okay?
perfect. Sounds good. All right. Muchas gracias. Thank you, Bill. Love to you too.
Love to you too, Bill. To love to everybody.
Absolutely.
Love to
So great
everybody.
to have you all here. We'll see you tomorrow and on Thursday. Back with Claudia.
Yes. Okay. Bye.